Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we continue the FL Studio series right here at BusyWorksBeats.com/FL Studio. I guarantee you're going to learn something new about FL Studio in this video, so smash the like button and share with a friend, guys. So the first plugin that people overlook is the actual sampler, the thing you load up your drums in. People don't realize there's so many features you can use inside of the sampler alone. So firstly, what I like to do is go to the envelope tab, go to the volume, change this to a hold parameter, meaning I'm going to turn up the hold parameter, turn everything else down. And basically you can now save that as a preset so you don't have to keep doing it every single time. And now it truncates the sample. So now when I let go of the key, it stops the sample. Without the envelope, it keeps ringing out. It just depends on the song on when I would need it, but for more underground, I gotta have it to where when I let go of the key, I can play it like a bass synth. Okay, so the next thing people overlook is the pre-computed effects. These are really, really strong. Most people push into the Fruity Soft clipper using what's called the boost. So the boost is probably going to be the biggest tip you guys already know about. So we're just boosting the volume to make the 808 nice and full. That's one thing you guys can do. I've also seen beat battlers turn up reverb. So if you guys go to beatbattleleague.net, sign up for our Beat Battle League, I've seen this occur to where they turn on the reverb and they turn up the 808. And so now it sounds like it's in a space. Okay, so you have two types of reverb, reverb A, reverb B. Okay, so it just depends on what you guys are doing. I've seen 808 slides use that technique. Another underrated technique is stereo delay. So we're creating a time delay between the left and the right ear, and it widens out the 808. If you guys are trying to create underground, you can also go to the pitch envelope, turn up the amount, turn up decay, turn everything else down. And what this will create is a pitch bend going down like, but just faster. And it creates a small transient grip to different 808s, especially more sustained 808s that don't have much of a punch to them. You can add a punch through the pitch envelope. You can also do the same type of thing. It's not the same exact thing, but if you go to pre-computed effects, you could turn on what's called pogo. A lot of older 808s had this little subtle pitch bend in them, and that was the pogo knob. So it goes, now if you turn it to the left, it creates more of an EDM snap sound. It's like click, click. All it really is a very fast pitch bend in the beginning of the sample. So that's what it's doing to the actual sample. Now you guys can loop different 808s. This 808 doesn't really sound good looping because the volume decays, but if you have more of a sustained 808, you can also loop that using the now built-in loop features here, using loop points, and then you can create a start point and end point. I wouldn't recommend getting in the habit of doing that because it's very loose. It's probably easier to right click, go into the audio editor, and then finding a loop point this way. Now again, this curvature, I would not loop an 808 like this because it won't sound natural. Okay, but more of those sustained 808s would be perfect for looping in that case. So that's just a technique for very specific 808s. Now let's move on to the next plugin. This next plugin is 3x OSC. Most people don't realize there's a sample settings tab, and if you drag waveforms into the sample settings tab, you can create your own oscillator. So I would not recommend waveforms, like full-on waveforms. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. You can do whatever you want in sound design. But in terms of as a beginner using this, try dragging in what are called wave tables or wave shapes. Okay, so these are very specific wave shapes. We're going to drag these in. And now if I hit a key, it plays like a very custom waveform. And I turned off oscillator 2 and oscillator 3, so I'm not hearing the built-in oscillators. Okay, so now you guys can drag in all these different shapes. So I'm sure you guys will find thousands of shapes online. So now you have oscillators that 3x OSC never offered. And you can build these right into your patcher. I think 3x OSC takes patcher. I might be wrong about that. Let me see if that's true. Hold on, guys. Okay, so it looks like 3x OSC can load up in patcher, but it doesn't have that sample tab. Something about loading audio in here. I don't know why it doesn't work in patcher, but if anybody figured it out, okay, ask them. Okay, just a little side note here. So now that's how you create custom waveforms. All right, inside of 3x OSC. The next plugin you guys didn't know about is called Sawyer, but you may have known about the presets, but I bet you guys didn't know if you click this image line tab, it opens up the actual delays on a sound and the reverbs on the sound, the effects. So if I go to lead, for example, Most people don't know these leads are really good for West Coast bass. I can go to the transpose, pull this down -12, and it creates a nice sound. But the thing is, it has this weird delay on it, and you're like, okay, I want to create a bass line, not a delay sound. So you probably didn't know, if you click on the image line tab, you could turn off delay. You can also do modulation. You can add chorus. So you guys get the gist, okay? Very slept on plugin in my opinion. The next plugin is very complicated to understand until you get into things like Serum. So if you guys are familiar with Serum bins and how you can draw out the harmonics, you could do the same thing in Morphine. So I think there's a function where you can start from scratch. We're going to click here, go to reset program, and it's not going to play anything. And like, okay, what did I just do? Basically, if you draw on this waveform under generator A, you can start to build harmonics one by one. So this is called the fundamental, meaning just a sine wave. We can do things like add the second harmonic and then add the third harmonic. Now we have a pretty nice full bass just like that. Now we can go to the settings, for example, go to the wrench tool, turn on monophonic mode, turn on the slide mode, and now I have a bass line or even a lead sound. And I can reshape just by drawing on the harmonics. They also have a built-in saturation. Now you have a really nice bass line just like that. Now I'm going to switch this to one note, mono. You can even add chorus. All right, so that's how you can start sound designing. And here, additive synthesis is a little complex. So I wouldn't recommend that for a beginner, but I just wanted to show you guys that's how you actually use Morphine to build sounds. Now in Flex, you guys may have heard of Flex, but I bet you didn't know that if you use your bass guitar and play higher octaves, it sounds like an electric guitar. So let me just show you guys what that sounds like. You would never think to use the bass guitar as an electric guitar, but if you play an octave or two higher, you get a really clean electric guitar, and it's nice and warm and it feels very R&B. And you can add a bunch of effects and different things. I'll show you guys. Let me move this to the top so I can show you guys a really cool technique. Once we get to the layer tool, I'm going to show you guys a really dope technique. So I'm going to add that to the top there. So just a really nice sound, especially when you have panning and different delay effects, that can get really nice. Now the layer, I'm going to show you guys how to create what are called, what's the word there? Man, let me think of the word. Multi-keys. So you guys may have heard the word multi-keys. We're going to show you guys how to do that real quick. I'd recommend you have up to 6 sources, however. So far we only have 1, 2, 4 sources. So I'm going to wait till we have 6 sources and come back to that one. Now the next plugin is called Beep Map, and you can actually open up images inside of Beep Map and then turn on grainy mode. So we can open up images. All right, so you guys can literally just, open up any image that's on your computer, and then it will load up, and then you can play it like, you could change the frequency so it has a different starting point. And then turn on grain mode and then mess with the length. Now if it's too low, just keep turning it up. I found that images with different colors, for example, let me Control Z, see if it takes us back to our other image that we had. Hopefully it does. All right, it's not going to be able to load up our other image. So I had a different image initially, but the more contrast I found, the better. I think it was this image here. Now, I would not use that sound as is. I would add reverb and different delays. Speaking of, I might as well show you guys now. I learned this from Pete's Beats. Shout out to him. if you load up what's called Fruity Convolver. Now this video is going to be focused on synth stuff, not effects stuff, because we could be here all day. But Fruity Convolver, there's a preset in here. If you guys got a preset, go to blur white. I learned this from Pete's Beats. This basically turns any sound into an ambient sound. So now we can take that beat map sound and make it sound more like a texture. And now it just sounds like, you know, some kind of horror movie environment. So because it has such a weird harmonic spread, it doesn't sound like a sound that we're used to. Okay, so the beat map is really good for creating like the textural layer, and then you combine that with Fruity Convolver. So that's a technique you guys can use. Direct Wave is another plugin people don't understand. This is basically FL Studio's version of Contact. It just doesn't have the bells and whistles and the interface of Contact, but it can load up multi-samples. So here's a multi-sample from our blueprint at busyworksbeats.com. And even if you don't have the paid version, I believe you can still use the effects here, like reverb, delay, different things. All right, so again, when you understand what multi-samples are, that will make more sense. But people don't understand Direct Wave is basically Contact without the front end. Now, FL keys, you may think, okay, who doesn't know about FL keys? What most people don't know about FL keys is that if you, these presets that are in the plugin, you could switch these out for different instruments, like a Rhodes, for example. Okay, but that's, you know, most people don't know there's other presets. If you click the preset window and go to things like dance piano, this is the piano you guys hear all the time. That's the piano you hear in all those Memphis tracks, okay? It's a preset inside of FL Keys, but most people don't think to check the other preset window for more presets. Another technique you guys can mess with in FL Studio, my brain is going all over the place, is if you go to FPC, you can load up what's called an empty preset, and you can drag multiple samples on one pad. So what I've done here is I have a hat and a snare. Now what I've done is I've moved the velocity trigger up for the hat, which means if I play lower velocities, it's only going to trigger the snare. If I play harder velocities, it will trigger the snare and the hi-hat. So this is really good for kicks and snares where you have a lot of ghost kicks. So for example, if I play softer with the kick, I did the same exact technique. I have a kick layered with a hi-hat. Only if I play the kick really aggressively will it actually have the hi-hat, and I also have scale velocity on, meaning it doesn't play the same velocity every kick. So I can do kicks where it's like ghost kicks. Now notice if I play the soft kick, it doesn't trigger the hi-hat. If I play harder, it does. So now your drums sound a little more just nuanced, instead of just sounding like boom, boom, ta, ba-boom, boom, ta without the hi-hat. And this really helps you guys with your ghost samples as well. And you don't require another pad just to play a ghost kick. Okay, simple as that. Now, what I love about FPC is you can also use what are called cut groups. So let's say I want to make it sound sampled where it cuts off the other sample. I can set it to 0 by 0, do the same exact thing for the snare. So if I happen to play them at the same time or back to back, it cuts the other one off. Now we don't have sounds that really need to cut each other off. Maybe an open hi-hat and a hi-hat would be cool to create a choke group for, but that's really good for sustained sounds that you want that sampled feel to them. Okay, you can try that technique as well. Very slept on, to use velocity layers. And I think Ad McCree talked about that recently, if I'm not mistaken. The next plugin is called Fruity Dance. Now, you guys have seen it dance when you guys hit play, it'll dance to the BPM, but that's, you know, the front end of it. If you guys didn't know, when you turn it on, every time you drag something from the sampler, it now has the fruity dance icon. So if I open up a sample, for example, and if you guys look closely and zoom in, you'll see the fruity dance icon dragging the actual sample file over, you know, into different locations. So that animation is added to your browser. Most people didn't know that. Now, do we have enough sounds here? Yeah, we got a piano. So let's start layering these sounds. What we're going to do is take all the sounds here except for the beep map. And what else do we do? A bass. Okay, so for the bass, we have to go to the settings here and we need to go right click on the higher octaves. I think I did that backwards. Okay, right click on the left octaves to make it higher. So now when I play these notes, it doesn't play a different octave. Now this does, so I need to do the same thing here. Just need to make sure everything's in the same octave. That's not in the same octave, so quickly we're going to go to the wrench tool, change that root note. Now this one also has what's called monophonic mode on. We're going to turn that off. And let's turn off the envelope. Whoa. Let's turn this volume down. How do you turn it? So now we have a cool sound, and then this sound is cool, but we need to turn off, pardon me, what's called monophonic. Okay, monophonic. And that's also a little too low in the octave, so let's raise it. A little too saturated. Okay, so now we have sounds that all in pretty much the same octave. We're going to go open up the layer tool and we're going to highlight these sounds. Now the tricky part is having the layer tool window stay open as you do this technique. So that's the hardest part, is just seeing both. So I like to drag mine just out the way. And then we're going to highlight the elements that we want to layer. In this case, everything except for the 808 up top. So we're going to highlight all these. So we have 6 layers here, and we're going to do what's called set children. This is going to basically take all those things that we just highlighted and put them into a layer. So when I play notes on the layer with my MIDI controller, it triggers all of these sounds. Now, one of these sounds is out of tune, which I'll go back and fix. But the cool thing is, if we go to where it says random, I can hit a key and it will play any one of those random sounds. So this is how you create multi-keys without any plugin. Same thing you can do in Pigments. Now all I got to do is just tune the one out of tune sound. Okay, for some reason Salter wasn't 100% at -12 semitones, but we're going to go to random now, or even sequential, which is called round robin, where it's going through one by one. Sound 1, sound 2, sound 3, sound 4, sound 5, sound 6, and then it repeats. So that's what sequential means, aka round robin. It goes through in order. Random is just picking a random sound. Let's make that one buzzy sound a little less buzzy. And then this way it blends in a little bit better with other sounds. All right, so now when we play the layer, okay, and then you can add effects to each sound and make it really unique. So layering is very, very, very slept on. You could even do this with one shots as well inside of the channel rack. All right, so the next technique, we went through a lot of techniques, is now Fruity DX10 comes with a preset called log drum. This is what X Dizzle put me onto years ago. He said that's where the Afrobeat kind of log drum sound came from. This is a very simple FM synth. It has a main oscillator, a modulator, and a modulator. So you can create these like percussive, like house type blips in here. And to be short, I'm not gonna sit here and bore you with FM synthesis. Just try messing with the decay curvature here and make it so that the shapes have a quick decay curvature, and also mess with this through knob here to create like a 5th tone in there. Okay, so I'll just give you guys time to explore. Now the next thing is called Fruity Video Player. You can actually link this to your playback. So when you hit play, you can actually create music around a video clip. So I haven't used this in years, but you know, for people who like to create like commercials and different things like that, you could try using this in your sessions. It is glitchy from the last couple times I've used it, but I'm sure they've made this more stable over time. Basically, you just have to mute the audio. So I built a mask so it doesn't play back the audio from the video. And then you can hit this little link button, and every time you hit play in your DAW, it will start playing the video. So now you can synchronize your music to the actual advertisement or shorts clip, whatever you guys are trying to animate with music. The next plugin is called GMS, and this is simple. This is basically the same thing as 3x OSC, just with more control. You can load up those custom waveforms that I showed you guys. So let me show you guys here. Now it's a little tedious to do it. You can't just drag and drop from what I understand. Let me see if I'm wrong or right. Here are those wavetables. Let me see if I can just drag it in. I doubt it though. Yeah, so you have to go to this drop down, go to load waveform, and you have to manually find the folder for your waveforms. Very tedious, whereas 3x OSC, you just drag and drop. But here's the waveform. And I've added stereo detuning, more voices. Now, the cool thing that you can't do in 3x OSC is the frequency modulation. So I could turn up this frequency modulation. Now I can modulate the waveform, the custom waveform, by different shapes, like a sine wave, for example. This is 2-to-1, meaning the operator 2 is modulating this wave. So let's say we want a wider sound. Let's add more voices. Let's do like 7 voices here, and then let's add a stereo width and then detune those voices. And then mess with the FM amount. You can also modulate this and automate this. And you can also drop the octave, or change the octave, I should say. It just depends on what you guys are trying to create. Personally, I like the original tuning. Nice bass. Now what I would do on top of this is go to the settings here, turn on monophonic mode. And then we can leverage the filter if it's too bright. We can add more resonance. We can add movement to it, give it a decay curvature. All right, so that's how we create really unique sounds inside of GMS without just using the stock preset. The next plugin is called Fruity Slicer. Now here I'm going to load up, let's do a drum break because it has a lot of transient information in the drum break. Let's do a do sound. Shout out to Drew from a do sounds. We're going to drag this drum break into Fruity Slicer, and then you can mess with these knobs here to detect different transients. So if I move this around, okay, it's creating different chops based on its algorithm of auto chopping. So it looks like it's pretty much the same no matter how I turn the knobs. And you can also turn on what's called play to the end. So instead of it playing one chop at a time, which it normally does, you can have it play to the end. So when you play a note, it keeps going, which is really good for like drum breaks. So this is really experimental, especially with drum breaks. You guys can also reverse individual chops. You can preview it by hitting the right click. So as you guys can hear, it's going to play all the way to the end. But that's really good for the playback when you want to create like a hip hop vibe without sounding like a robot. Tick, 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 tock, tick. Okay, and you guys can mess with all the other knobs, but that's the thing that most people don't know about Fruity Slicer. The next plugin, which most people don't really mess with at all, is called Harmore. This can load up images. So let me find an image real quick. All right, so let's see what I sound like. So this is great for social media content. I've seen people get millions and millions of views off this, just this simple concept here. We're going to drag an image into this area, all right, from the Explorer or Finder window. And now it will map you to a frequency response, and you can play at different speeds. So it's similar to how we messed with the beat map. The only thing is we got to wait a long time for it to actually reach our position. So we're going to move the starting time and then change the speed. This is like very slow. And you can also have it loop as well. And you can mess with the scale to determine the harmonics, how it calculates that. So mine just sounds like a bunch of noise. But I've seen people run like, I think I even did it. Here we go. Here's the speed button I was trying to mess with. So just goofy. I've seen people load up SpongeBob, just stupid stuff. Okay, so just try it for social media. It's just funny. And then you can run that through the effects. And I think it even draws out the shape on the right side. But I think this is too zoomed in for us to actually see. So that's just something fun to play with. Most people don't even know that. Now the MIDI out player is really dope because you can trigger effect plugins using MIDI. So here we have the port set to 1 as long as this number is the same thing as our effect. So for example, we're going to run Auto-Tune Harmony Engine, and if you go to the settings window, make the input port the same number. So the MIDI out number, aka like the channel it's on or the port it's on technically, without saying the wrong words, we're going to put this to 1, and then that has to match input port 1. So as long as they match, we will trigger that thing. Now in here, we have different options for this specific plugin. This is not an FL plugin, but we have to go to where it says this drop down here, harmony source. We're going to go to chord via MIDI. Okay, now we can create chords from vocals using MIDI. So I've already pre-recorded some vocals here. I mean, you guys know what I'm saying, some MIDI. So it goes from this to this. And that's through using the MIDI out. Now MIDI out doesn't give you a sound, so you have to know the notes that you're playing or try to add it to a different instrument if you need more tonality first, and then you could drag the MIDI notes into the MIDI out. As long as that port number is the same exact port number as the input port inside of the effect plugin, you can trigger that effect plugin with MIDI. So that's how you can give different note values to something like a harmony engine, for example. So I would love to see what you guys create with that, because that is a very dope sound to kind of harmonize around just a vocal without it taking away from that vocal. The next plugin here is Plucked. Now Plucked is pretty basic, but I'm going to show you guys more features on the back. So Pluck is a very nice sound, very harp-like. We can mess with the color to get rid of some of the tone. If we want a brighter tone, I'd say to the left is more synthetic. To the right is more like a real harp, but it's just bright. Now if we turn off the width, we're going to get a very centered sound. So I like the wide sound. And then we can add more decay curvature. But that's not it. So if we go to the wrench tool, most people overlook this. We can turn on what's called the delay area. Let's turn up the feedback, and then we can turn up the pitch amount as well. So I'm going to turn mine up to 700 cents. I'm reading the value in the top left info panel up there, so I have to be exact here. So 700 cents, come on, there it is. And now when I hit a key, okay, we can tell it how many echoes we want. So I just want 2. All right, so that's how we get really unique tones. You can also mess with the arpeggiator. Now the arpeggiator re-triggers before the delay. So the delay only triggers when it has like a sustained sound. So the arpeggiator basically overrides the echo for the most part. So we can have this repeat on different octaves. I like to set mine to either 2 or 3. And then you could do these like, now the speed's a little fast, so let's turn the speed down a little bit. So you guys get the gist, okay? And then we'll, you know, go throughout that specific scale. Now you can get more exotic going through scales. You can even set it to auto, or forget the exact note, where it basically just re-triggers the chord itself. I always mix these up. I think it's auto sustain. No, it's not one of those. So again, I'm not gonna quote you guys on that one because my brain is like, we have so many tips in here, I'm confusing myself. So let's move to the next plugin. This one's called Poison. Now Poison is dope of a plugin. I love sound designing in here. Most people don't know, however, you can actually link it to different things. Like for example, if you wanted to combine this with a fruity envelope controller, we're gonna go to the drop down, go to articulator 1. This is like a group of things, group of mappings, I'll say. And then we can go to here, to the drop down, go to velocity mapping. And it normally is like this, where it's like flat across. What we're gonna do, pardon me, is gonna, on the left side, turn it down, on the right side, turn it up. And then we're gonna go back to the Poison. We're gonna right click and link to a controller, but this time we're gonna link it to an internal controller called an articulator 1, which is a group of envelopes, basically. All right, and then we're gonna basically, as we turn up the velocity for this specific sound, if I go back to fruity envelope, the velocity mapping, you can see if I hit different keys, it outputs a different value. Okay, so we should be able to go back to Poison and then link to controller. Okay, so now when I play different velocities, it plays a different cutoff filter amount. All right, so let's open up Patcher to demonstrate this because it is a little convoluted seeing it just in the channel rack. You have to visualize it. Here's the envelope controller. It inputs, it takes in MIDI, okay, from the DAW, and then it outputs some kind of signal. Now this one outputs audio. Okay, so if I hit a note, we should hear a sound. Okay, so what we want to do is right click. We want to open up Poison, go to default. We're going to go to the cutoff filter. We're going to right click. We're going to activate this, and we should be able to modulate it. This little red dot represents the fact that we can modulate it. But now we have to create a modulation source from the fruity envelope. So let's go into the fruity envelope. Let's go to velocity mapping. Let's do that technique I showed you guys where you turn it down. For low velocities, if I play soft, it plays lower output values. If I play more aggressive, it plays higher output values. And I think you have to set this to continuous output if I'm not mistaken. But let's right click, let's go to controller, and let's go to articulator 1, which is the group that we're under, number 1 right here. And then we want to connect the articulator with Poison. Now, I think there's also different parameters. Yeah, if we, this is convoluted, but we can now modulate this. Seems like it has an envelope. So this is the group of stuff. So it's mapping the velocity, it's mapping this envelope to that specific thing. Let's give it a decay curvature. Now I think it has to have specific outputs so that it's not just mapping everything. So here we can right click and go to, where is it? Input. I always mix these up, guys. Give me a sec. Okay, no, we were doing it the right way. It was just I had the screen on the wrong thing. So basically, if you double click in here, you have to make sure you're highlighting velocity mapping, or else it goes back to the envelope, from what I understand. So that's the thing that will control the thing that we had modulated. That's an envelope movement. All right, so I might be incorrect exactly on that, but I don't hear that decay. Okay, the decay is definitely still going. So let's just add a sustain. Okay guys, the answer is always obviously right in front of our face. If you have the envelope on, you have to turn it off. Here's the power button of the envelope. That turns it on, it adds this little arrow. Here's the power button for it. So now the envelope won't modulate the sound, it's just the velocity mapping. So if I play soft, it closes the filter if I play more aggressively. It opens the filter if I play softer. It closes the filter, okay? So the answer was like right in front of my face. Like I said guys, it's late. So if I play, this makes the plugin a little more expressive for people who are into sound design and nuances like that. You can even do it to the detuned amounts. So I can even right click here, activate that, and use velocity to create a detune amount. So the harder I play, the more reset gets. to have some unison in here. All right, so I have to do more studying to understand how to unlink the actual velocity from the velocity mapping. So like I said, guys, FL can get very complicated. The next plugin, let's keep rocking, is we did Poison, is Slice. So Slice X, if you guys load up something like a drum break, for example, it will auto chop. If it doesn't auto chop, you want to click this tool where it says medium auto slicing. You can right click here to choose different styles. Usually medium auto slicing is where we start. And you guys can mess with that. And what it will do is automatically send the chops into MIDI. But what you guys might not know is you can actually export the groove from a sample. So if you go to dump score to piano, we can go into the piano roll just like this. And what it's doing is creating different time markers basically. So we can go to file in the piano roll, go to save score as, so not MIDI, we're saving a score. So it's saving the timings of everything. So I could save a score as, let's just drag this to the desktop. So we're going to save it in this folder here. And then let's say I open up some hi-hats from my browser, for example. Let me just open up the BusyWorks Beats hi-hats, boom. And I can create a hi-hat pattern. Let's fill each 2 steps. Of course, I clicked the wrong button. Fill each 2 steps, and then I can go inside the piano roll. I could hit Alt Q, so not Control Q, Alt Q, and I can load up different templates. You can load up MPC swings. We have those in our Discord, MPC 60, MPC 2000 XL. But we're going to load up the recent drum file that we just created, and now it will quantize to that specific groove. Now this, I didn't chop a lot of chops, so the groove's going to be all choppy and all over the place, but that's how you guys can make your drum sound more cohesive with a certain drum groove. All right, so I'm not saying this will sound crazy, but let me see here. So now if I hit Alt Q and mess with that sensitivity, it's now going to follow the drum groove. And you can hear those little gaps in time. So that's how you can get a more realistic hi-hat from drum breaks and kind of translate it. Now Ableton's much easier to do it in Ableton, but that's FL Studio's way of doing that technique. Again, that technique requires a lot more nuance than what I showed you guys, but that's the process on how to do it. Now, what most people don't talk about in Citrus is the fact that you can load up Yamaha DX7 presets and other, I believe it's just the Yamaha. So if you go to the drop down, go to Yamaha DX7 presets, you can load up what are called system expansion files. And these are basically presets that people made back in the day. So there's websites where you can download like hundreds of them or thousands of them for like 50 megabytes worth of space. All right, so we're gonna load this up. And this library specifically has stuff like Atari and all these different creators. We're just gonna go to Atari and load up the version number 1. Now again, there's millions of stuff in here, millions of things in here. We can even go to Yamaha 07, let's just pick that one. Now this is a very arduous process because it's not very fluid. It requires a lot of clicks because you still have to go back, click here, and then click here just to get to the preset. So you can't just arrow through these presets. It requires a lot of clicking. All right, now if I want to go to the next preset, I have to click in here and switch to another instrument like a piano. Okay, so remember FM synthesis, the whole goal of FM synthesis was to sound like real instruments. So a lot of these sounds are going to sound very similar. So again, like I said, it's hit or miss because it just takes a little too long to get through all the presets one by one just by doing this. But you might find some random gold in here, you never know. Sounds pretty cool. So again, these sounds are from different sound designers from around the world. Here's a Wurlitzer, for example. So it sounds very static because they're not wavetables. So I wouldn't say that's a Rhodes, but somebody tried to, model a Rhodes there. Now the next plugin is Toxic Biohazard. Now this thing, I'm still learning more and more about this plugin. But my favorite thing to do is just go to default. I'll just show you guys what it sounds like. I think people just sleep on it, the sound of it. So if you modulate by about 20 per this little quadrant in the top left, just somewhere around 20, turn on operator 2. mix level by clicking this window to turn it on, and then pan one to the left, one to the right. It creates this nice wide sound. And then you can add unison, for example. We can add more voices through unison. We could pan those out to create a wide sound. It's a very smooth sound that can get very big. We can even add operator 3 and just add a little dissonance by adding just some random pitch value here. And it creates like a distortion on the sound. We can even add drive to thicken out the bass. So we can get a lot of cool sounds with this plugin. Again, like I said, it's very slept on. You can even give, I'm trying not to bore you guys to tears about FM synthesis, but we can even create an envelope using operator 2, giving it a decay curvature. So it sounds more like, it's gonna sound weird when one pans to the left, one pans to the right. So let's make that centered, hitting Alt left click. And then these LFOs will modulate different things like volume. So you can create like more moving type sounds. And operator 2 doesn't sustain, so let's turn it back up. So now you can hear wow, wow, like that. All right, so I like to add chorus and delay just to kind of throw things around. And like I said, when you guys pair this with the Pete's Beats technique, what channel was that? Let's run it through. I think it was channel 2, no, channel 3. So we're going to pair it with the preset in Fruity Convolver called Blur White. Under presets, go to Blur White. Pete's Beats put me onto this. Combine it with that, and now you have a very, very, very ambient sound. So you guys get the gist there. You can create really, really big sounds with that. We went over Patra to a degree, and I think we covered everything. So guys, this has to be an hour-long video. So since I shared so many gems, I didn't even expect to go this long. I need you guys to share with a friend, share with their Discords, on your Reddit communities, and all I ask is that you subscribe and go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio to learn more about FL Studio. Peace out, guys.